Hello everyone, welcome. Can you guys hear me okay? Testing the audio now, so let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Now, the funny thing is, behind the scenes, I'm actually having a bit of a problem with the stream at the moment. So behind the scenes in the YouTube studio, it's actually still a minute to go in terms of the countdown for this live stream. So I think I'm about a minute ahead here. I might be a minute ahead of the chat, so I apologize. I could start it all again, but I think we're just going to leave it because it's going okay. And I was having a lot of issues before. I've even dropped the bit rate by half, so it's about 10,000 kilobits per second. Let me know if the bit rate is really bad, and I think it's going to be okay because you're just going to listen to this audio anyway. It's probably something passive that you're going to be doing. And yeah, so it is what it is. We're just going to be talking about the DLSS comments today that you guys have posted into my video. I was up till 3 a.m. last night to make that video. I got a few dislikes, but that's cool. It was a really quick job. I totally understand. If you thought it was missing something, like maybe an image quality discussion, I also wanted to keep it really short because I know you guys just wanted to look at the results and just have a bit of a graph there just to and also, like, you know, just get some proper testing done really quickly. And so that's why I put it out there. And also, you know, with these type of things where everybody is trying to make a video at the same time, uh, there's a tendency to be first as well, but I don't want to just put out something first and really trashy. It's got to be at like some sort of like minimum level of quality. So I just put out the just for ultra settings because I think ultra settings is where it matters the most. And I guess you guys are smart enough to work out, you know, what's going to happen with medium settings and low settings and that sort of thing. And I would also say, like, if you're actually going to be using DLSS, you may as well just use it with the ultra settings because even at like 1080p, you do tend to notice a drop in the quality of the image. So maybe there are other settings that you can use instead of DLSS if you're playing at 1080p. Okay, so actually the first thing I wanted to mention was that, just a quick word, a really quick word on something, some really good news that happened to me, not to me personally, but I heard about a friend, and he'd been missing for about 3 months on another Discord that I'm on. I'm on a Yakuza Discord, and we're really good friends there. And we hadn't heard from him for about 3 months, and we found out that a couple of days ago he tried to take his life. And I just want to give him a shout out. I don't know if he'll ever watch this because I don't know if he is subscribed to my channel, but I want to give him a shout out and let him know that we're all here for you. And if you want to talk about anything in DMs, or if you want to talk in the Discord, you know, just come and talk to us if you're ever feeling down. And that goes for everybody else who's watching the stream as well. Like, if you're feeling down, that's what the community is for. We have a Discord. I'll leave a link in the description below later. Or you can get it from any of the other videos that I posted recently. Get the Discord link, and we're all in there. And we have a really good gaming community there. And come along and join us there in that Discord server. And I will also say, if you know of anyone that's feeling a little bit down, not really feeling up to it, you know, I think it's nice of other people to just go and say, hello, hey, what's going on? Go and DM them and just see how they're going if you haven't spoken to them in a while. Okay, let's go straight into... actually, I want to go to this video cards article. Hi, Smegmoses, hello, how are you? It's just somebody from my other Discord, so I'm really glad that he's okay now, and I just wanted to give him a shout out, and also as a reminder to everybody to, you know, think about other people and, you know, think about how they're going as well. That's all I really wanted to say. Okay, let's go to this video cards article. So actually, before I do that, let me tell you what we're going to be doing in this live stream today. So I think I want to try and take an hour. I want to keep it under an hour if I can. So we're going to look at Red Dead Redemption 2, That's right. A really good friend in a Discord channel, and he'd been there for about 3 months. But I thought it was a good lesson for all of us to like think about, our friends and the rest of our community. Okay, so today what we're going to do in this video is to go over all of the comments in the Red Dead Redemption 2 video that I posted last night, and and also in the chat as well. So if you have any questions about the Red Dead Redemption 2, or you have questions about DLSS, I will basically try to answer them as best as I can based off the testing that I've done and what I've read so far. I'm not pretending to be an expert on any of this. I just want to talk about it with you guys. So if you have any questions, you want to talk about anything to do with this, if you think the performance is not up to scratch, hey, let's talk about why, and let's find out why that might be and share some ideas together. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do is go to this video cards article, and it's basically just letting us know there was an update yesterday to Red Dead Redemption 2, and it's out on PC. It'll be out on all of the launchers. I have Red Dead Redemption 2 on Epic Games launcher, so I downloaded it straight away, and I tested this in 1080p, 1440p, 4K, and I tested that in Ultra. Now, if I did that in other settings, it would take me a long time to do, and I wanted to get the video out. So that's why I only did it in Ultra. And I think for 1080p, Ultra is really the only setting that you guys should be using it on, because I think, I haven't tested this, but you lose a little bit of quality already in Ultra. And I think DLSS is one of those things where, because it affects the entire picture, it's probably something that you want to use only if you're not losing the image quality. So I think for 1080p, there may be other ways to get your frame rate up without losing too much of a quality. And I think with DLSS, you do notice a little bit more noise, a little bit more pixelation happening, because it's trying to reconstruct the picture from not enough data. And I think that is why you start to find, I guess, the image looking a little bit more pixelated. Like it's almost like it's not native anymore. And if you have a native 1080p monitor, then you're wondering, hey, is this like a super sampled picture from like 900p or 720p? Because that's what it feels like. But anyway, I wanted to point to this graph, and let me just blow it up. And I didn't even go to the video cards article. So yeah, we're on the video cards article here about the DLSS update to Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay, so here are the results, and this is results for all of the GPUs out there. And look, it's really interesting. Now, I've only tested it with the RTX 3070, so I haven't tested it with the other GPUs, but you can see there, you get a noticeable, you get more gain with that RTX 3080 Ti, which is really like an RTX 3090. That actually has a lot higher memory bandwidth, so that's probably why you see a much higher gain with the DLSS, because it's able to leverage that memory bandwidth increase, along with, of course, the GPU cores as well. So I think there, if we do the calculation for that, let me see this. So this is on performance mode as well. So this is pretty much the maximum performance you expect to get. There's also an ultra performance mode, and I didn't test this, but I think performance mode, you get a big enough boost anyway that you shouldn't have to worry about the ultra performance mode unless you're really struggling, like with an RTX 2060, for example. Okay, so you're going to get 45% like they claimed. So they claimed the 45% of performance increase. Okay, and with the RTX 3070, which is the one that I tested, so yeah, you're also getting 45%. So actually, that's funny because like the graph, I expected that to be a little bit better for the 3090, but it's not. It's the same. So I'm just, maybe it's like an optical illusion. Okay, but we're getting 45% boost on the performance mode. And if I just bring up the graph last night from last night. So this is the graph that I posted in my video of the testing that I did. And you can see there, that's pretty much in line with my tests, even though, okay, I'm not testing this on a clean test bench or anything like that. I've got stuff in the background and whatnot. So maybe that's why I lost a couple of frames. But you can see if we go 59.8 on 42 point, oh, geez. It's about 40% performance boost if you go from 4K Ultra to 4K Ultra DLSS performance. So their claims are pretty reasonable, I think. The lower card needs the most help. Poor 2060. Yeah. Yeah, that's the one that needs it the most. But I don't think you'd be playing it in 4K anyway. So let me have a look and see. Well, at least, you know, with the RTX 2060, you're able to get 30 FPS. If you really wanted to play on 4K on the RTX 2060, maybe, you know, you are on a TV, for example. You got a 4K TV, you got an RTX 2060. That would be a way to go with that. And so the other thing I wanted to do was go to some of your comments in the chat. But what we're going to do is I'm going to play my full benchmark run. So I made another video with all of the benchmark runs that I did. In this video, I put them all side by side. So as you can see there, I've got 1080p Ultra, 1080p Ultra, DLSS quality, and then DLSS performance side by side. But I'm going to play you another video and it's going to be about 25 minutes, so it's just going to run in the background while I talk over some of these comments in this video. So we're going to go into these comments here. Now, they're probably going to be off screen, so you're just going to have to bear with it while I read some of these comments out. But I will play the other video because I think that might be a better way to do this video. Rather than just looking at the comments, at least you get something in the background to look at. So let me just adjust everything here. Okay. Okay, I think that should do it. So we're going to answer some of these questions now, and we're going to play this video. I'll talk about the video as well. So this is the full benchmark run, and what I did was basically take one section of Red Dead Redemption 2. This is from the beginning of the game, and I'm just going to ride a horse and ride it from here to the town, I guess, a couple of minutes away. And we're going to repeat that for 1080p Ultra, and then DLSS quality, and then DLSS performance. I'm going to do that at the 3 resolutions. And let's go. So the first question, and this is the top comments, is it just me? Oh, sorry. Let me read who made the comment first. It's Keop901, and he says, is me or I'm just not seeing a major impact with DLSS in this game, excluding 4K. Okay, so what's going on is this game has been retrofitted with DLSS. So because it's not done from the ground up, I think there aren't things that they're able to take advantage of to get DLSS to be better utilized at those other frame rates. Other resolutions. So with 1080p, 1440p, you're losing too much quality. Okay, and notice how, like, for example, so we're in 1080p Ultra right now, and I want you guys to look out for the train track lines. I don't know if you're actually going to be able to see this with the lower bit rate on YouTube, but essentially with the lower resolution, you're going to get noticeable quality drop in the train track lines as you're going around here, and also in the grass detail itself. So with ultra quality and also ultra performance, DLSS performance, there's a drop in quality in the grass, and you notice it that it's more pixelated. So I might go back to some of the other comments in the inside of the thread later on. But with 4K, you're working on 4K images that the game is comparing it to, because that's how DLSS works. It takes this ground truth. I think it was like 16K. I don't exactly know, but it takes this ground truth data image and then uses that as an example to compare it to this. But also with 4K performance is using a 1080p render resolution, and then it's going to try to upscale that to 4K and use that ground truth super data image thing to give it a better picture or give it more data. And so at 1080p, if you're going 1080p performance, it's 540p. So that's why it's not going to have as much data to begin with, and it's trying to fill all of those gaps. I don't know if you can see this right now, but there's a noticeable drop in quality, at least in the grass at the very least, with 1080p Ultra. And I noted that in my video right at the end, I had an image quality slide that I had for like about 10 seconds there, talking about the image quality. And I didn't really want to say too much other than the fact that basically what I've been seeing from this benchmark run, because I think I should leave that to, say, like a Digital Foundry analysis where they played more of the game. You know, maybe you should talk about it after you play like 20, 30 hours of this at the different quality levels, to talk about how it works for most of the game. So I don't think this is enough of data to talk about the image quality very well. So as you can see here, the train tracks, there's more shimmering on the train tracks. Okay, I just have to go for a second. I'll be back in a second. Okay, I am back. There was a lot of noise before. I had to get rid of the noise. Okay. Roy Van Osh says, what settings did you use? Quality settings, custom, grass, and so on. Okay, so there's an ultra preset. So there's a slider there for basically how much quality you want. And I just turned that slider all the way up to ultra. Now, some of those settings are still on medium. I forget which ones, but most of them, I would say 90% of the settings are on ultra. And there are some things like MSAA that just, like, if you turn on MSAA 16 or a very high setting, then you're going to go over the VRAM and it won't let you play the game. So I just left it on the Ultra preset. And I think you get a pretty nice quality image with the Ultra preset anyways, without turning all the other little things up as well. Dwayne Hawkins says, looks like a nice boost, although maybe not as big as in certain other games. Would love to try it, but just recently deleted the game from my PC. So 1080p and 1440p, you get about a 10% boost, and then with the with 4K, you get a higher boost. And when I say 10% boost, that's with the quality setting. I think you get about 20% if you use the performance setting. Greg says, if I had to buy a GPU right now, DLSS in Red Dead Redemption 2 would direct me towards NVIDIA. Yeah, look, it's going to be really interesting in terms of support and what games get support for DLSS and what games get support for FSR. So, look, FSR looks like it does a good job. So maybe, you know, FSR will also come to Red Dead Redemption 2 later on as well, and then we can really see like which technology works better. At least for in terms of retrofitting, like Red Dead Redemption 2. It may be a little bit different if it works from the ground up, or they develop it from the ground up for DLSS or for FSR. So, and you know, there have been I've seen other games that have been retrofitted with FSR. Like just the other day, I saw Grand Theft Auto 5 retrofitted with FSR because it's an open source like software or open source code. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens and how much support both of these get. But I think if you're playing at 1080p, 1440p, yeah, you're right. You probably don't get that much of a performance boost with DLSS, but with 4K is really good. Show31 says, I can't see the 4K on my 1080 monitor. The uncertainty principle, you know. Yeah, so in the NVIDIA settings, what you need to do is there's an NVIDIA control panel. And if you have an NVIDIA GeForce card, at least I'm sure you'll be able to do it with the AMD as well. You can select something called Dynamic Super Resolution, DSR. It's in your NVIDIA control panel. So go into your little taskbar to the bottom right of Windows and then try to get into your NVIDIA control panel. And then you'll be able to select DSR there. And if you have 1080p, it will let you select 4K. So you can... It's basically like downsampling. So you could play it in 4K and then play it on your 1080p monitor, and you'll get a better quality image. So sometimes I might play my games at 4K even though I have a 1440p monitor. Apologies, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but it says here, because it's in Greek, it says here, I noticed one problem. When you move the camera, the picture ripples, the sharpness is high, as if the monitor matrix does not cope. And there are no such problems with TAA. Everything is fine in the static image. Performance is improved on the RTX 2070 in overclocking and 2K DLSS setting quality. Okay, so basically what happens with DLSS is that it's a temporal upscaler, a little bit like TAA. And so it's taking frames that you've just had, and then it's going to use those frames again in the information in the next frame that you're going to be producing. So that information that you just produced will also go into developing your next image to smooth out, like in TAA, you're smoothing out the lines. It's taking knowledge or data or information from that previous frame. And so DLSS works in a similar way, but you're also adding on top this super high resolution 16K image on top that gives you a lot more data about that. And also it's got this motion vector. So that's also describing like which way objects are going to go in the frame. So if it knows it's moving in this direction, then it's better able to draw the next frame. Now, your question was, when you move the camera, the picture ripples. Yeah, so that is why the picture ripples, because you're just starting off that motion vector. You're starting off that chain of the chain of frames that is going to be moving from that still image. So you're going to notice that more. But if you are on a moving image already, like what you're seeing on the screen right now, it's harder to notice because there's not that change in direction, or your camera is not swinging, because you've changed the motion vector and you've changed the calculations, basically. And the thing is, like, there are some good instances of DLSS, and then there are some where the implementation is not so good. So I won't say, I mean, it is a bit of a mixed bag, but overall, I don't think it's too bad. Like, honestly, like when you play the game and you've got a DLSS setting that you like, generally you don't notice it that much. And that doesn't go for all the games, but there are games that are quite bad with the DLSS. Like, I just recently played Lego Builder's Journey, and I don't think it was that good. I might have to retry it again with the new patch, but the first patch wasn't that great. Or the first driver for the Lego's Builder's Journey for the NVIDIA drivers wasn't that great. And you could see a lot of noise and pixelation, even for a game like Lego Builder's Journey. Olimar AC, can you do the same but with DX12 to see if there's any difference? Yes, so I use Vulkan for this, and yeah, I might go back and do DX12, and then I'll just comment on that comment later on. But I don't know because I haven't tried it yet. Let me go to the top chat now, or the YouTube chat, to see if there's anything that people have been saying there. Now, I'm wondering how I... And actually, I think that's a little bit difficult for me to get into because it's actually behind this video. I don't want to stop this video either. So what we might do is we're going to continue on with this. I think there's only a few... Okay, let me just pull out the... I'm sorry about this, but let me just pull out the top chat from this. Okay, well... Okay, so in the top chat, let's do some of these top chats first. The Muchas, DLSS is really good for 4K, but I find 1440p reviews being all over the place. In terms of Red Dead Redemption 2, in terms of all the games, I think 1440p works fine. No issues. I don't think you get as much of a boost. If you look at my chart, I don't think you get that much of a boost. It's like 10% at quality and then 20% at performance. 1080p is probably not worth it. Yeah, in terms of the image loss, it's noticeable, but I won't say it's that bad or it's unplayable. It's definitely playable, like it's fine. But if you said that there's nothing wrong with it, then I don't think that's quite correct, because I do see that there is some image quality drop. I1 says, Jesus man, stay away from those train tracks, brother. Any pubs nearby, partner? I haven't played that much of Red Dead Redemption 2, so I definitely want to. I just don't have time. I would love to play this game. But yeah, in terms of train tracks, yeah, even I know what you're talking about, but I would say that, yeah, in terms of DLSS for those train tracks, you can definitely see that as it curves around, there's a bit of shimmering on those train tracks. Deadlock Gaming says, I just get like 5 to 6 FPS difference when using DLSS on 1080p on my 2060 Super. Other games get like 20 to 30. Laugh my ass off. Yeah, it is what it is. It's a retrofit of DLSS, so I think it's nice, I guess. But I think so. What frame rate are you getting on that 2060 Super? If you're still around in the chat, can you let me know what frame rate you're getting on that 2060 Super and what graphics settings? Because I think I think you should be able to get to, at least if you're on 1080p, you should be able to get to 60 FPS by just adjusting a few settings. I1 says 20% is good enough, or direct storage and that bar thing. That'd be Nick, I think. 8 watching, Jim. Only joking. Yeah, that's about how many I normally get on my live streams. So it is what it is for a small channel. I'm so grateful that there are 8 people watching, honestly. And that's, as long as you guys stay, as long as you guys are using the chat and making that lively in there, then we can still have a good time on this live stream. Okay, so let me get back to some of these other YouTube comments on my other video. It says here, definitely seeing improvements on my system. RTX 2070 Super, i5 9600K, 16 gigabytes of RAM, everything on Ultra, 1440 resolution, smooth as butter. 2070 Super, that's going to be pretty good. I think that's, yeah, you should be able to hit 60 for sure with the DLSS. So with my 3070, I think I was getting 60 FPS, just 1440p Ultra. So with 1440p Ultra and DLSS quality or DLSS performance, I was getting 70 and 80 FPS, I think. So I think you should be able to get 60 FPS with that 2070 Super. But again, I don't think you quite need to have everything on Ultra. I think the game still looks really good on other settings on this game. But I will say that, yeah, Ultra is pretty nice in this game. Like, there is a noticeable increase in image quality. But yeah, you don't have to have it on Ultra to enjoy this game. Whereas like something like Cyberpunk 2077, there isn't that much of a difference between low quality and ultra quality. There is some sort of like post-processing effects sometimes, but there is a video, I think it's by a guy called CYCU2, and if you go and look up his video, he looks at the difference between low settings and ultra settings for Cyberpunk 2077, and low quality looks okay. Like, you're getting 25% frame performance increase, and low quality doesn't look too bad. So if you had it on medium or high, then you'd be just fine playing Cyberpunk 2077 on even medium settings, honestly. Like, the game looks fine in those settings. But for something like Red Dead Redemption 2, Ultra looks really good. Michael Lolevsky says, I have RTX 3070 Ti, R5 3600, and the only DLSS worth using without visual loss is DLSS quality, on which I get like plus 6 FPS on 3040 by 1440. Sucks, but oh well, better than nothing. I play on maxed everything and locked options as well. Hope next update will fix it. Performance DLSS is awful in distance and hair. Cool. That's interesting in hair as well. So got to look out for that. And this shot here is basically just of regular gameplay, but with no close-ups or no story scenes. So haven't really tested DLSS in that type of like close-up shot. But I would say that it probably look better in the close-up shot anyway. I think where you're struggling is when you have a lot of detail in the scene. So you have bushes and shrubs and vegetation and whatnot, and you're putting shadows in there. So that's probably when it's going to affect the scene the most. So we've got 2 more runs, 4K Ultra, DLSS quality, and I should be able to finish all of these comments by that time as well. Dry Chicken says, Brew, while I still playing with a GTX 1070 Ti at 1440p at 3050 FPS, I also still have a GTX 1070, and I think it would struggle in this game, honestly. Yeah, so you would get like 30, 40 FPS. But what I started to do in the last year of having the 1070 was I just decided to drop my resolution to 1080p for some games. It was a little bit of a bummer because I had a 1440p monitor, so I wasn't playing native, and you could tell that there was a bit of a difference in terms of image quality. But to get you over that line, that last year or so, yeah, you do have to make some sort of compromises at the time, and it is what it is. The 1070 in the next generation, so like for the 3070 in its second gen, it's going to be like a 4060 or a 4050 equivalent. That's what happens with graphics cards next generation. Many times the graphics cards improve by between 30 to 50%, and your graphics card is just going to struggle where it didn't before. So that's kind of like what you have to put up with a 70 card. With an 80 card, you kind of have to as well, because that 1080 card becomes like a 2060, or the 2080 becomes like a 3060. Actually, this time around, the 2070 is a 3060. So people who got a 2070 got a good deal. Because now your card is basically like a 3060, but with 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which is still fine. So yeah, your card just comes down a notch in that second generation. Sobe says, probably the best setting for 1440p is still balance. Yeah, you could be right. I mean, balance would probably give you good enough FPS, and you'd get a little bit more performance as well, especially on cards that you're struggling, because on 1440p, you're not really getting that much of a performance boost like you are with 4K. So I think balance could be the way to go. I didn't test it, but if you're not happy with DLSS quality, I think balance would be okay. Even a 1440p performance, I think that's still okay. Like after a while, you're not going to notice it that much. How's your big fella? Says, here's my 1440p benchmarks with the 3080. Custom settings similar to hardware. Unboxed on YouTube. Off 101. What? What's off? Quality 110. Balance 1. Oh, right. Okay. Got it. Okay. With DLSS off, you're getting 101 FPS, and with quality, you're getting 110. Balance 113. Well, balance, that's really not much then, really, is it, to go unbalanced? Ultra performance 125. Yeah, it is a little bit worse, but I think it. Well, oh, okay, you got ultra performance, so there's no performance setting there. So yeah, I wouldn't probably worry about ultra performance. If you start to see that the image quality is dropping for performance anyways, I don't know if ultra performance is worth it. Anthony Saba says, watching on, yes, very nice, watching on 720p phone. So then your image will be downsampled onto that 720p phone, and it's going to look great. So I think you're fine. Mark Ozor says, I wonder if the performance gained by DLSS is enough to enable MSAA instead of TAA. Yeah, so maybe you wouldn't even bother with TAA anyways. Maybe you could try with MSAA. But again, I don't know about you guys, but like for me on 4K, I don't really worry too much about anti-aliasing. So I might have it at 2x. Normally, I'm not that bothered by anti-aliasing anyways. And I haven't been bothered that much about it since 1080p. You know, because I always go back to my days from playing PS2, and that was a 480p or even 480i resolution, and there was no anti-aliasing when we bought the PS2 at launch. So you had games like Ridge Racer 5 where there was just stair stepping all over the place. Sorry to that guy who I just ran over, but yeah. So everything else since then has been, and I'm not trying to dismiss people who really need to have anti-aliasing, but I'm just saying, like, yeah, I think at 4K, there's not as much need for that anti-aliasing, and you should play around with it and try and get more performance that way. Oh, by the way, like, you know, when I do these benchmarks and I'm doing it at ultra, that doesn't mean I'll just set it at ultra and then just play the game the rest that way. I'll try and find some optimized settings. So I'll definitely turn off things like MSAA, anti-aliasing that I don't need. See how much extra performance I get. I like to be around 100 FPS, but if I can't, I'll try to be around 60 FPS and get a nicer image quality. It just depends on like the settings, how much performance I get, weighing all those decisions up. So the video has finished there. So let's go back to these YouTube comments. So, okay, just testing the mic there. I'm switching scene. Okay. All right. So where were we? Yeah. So I don't really worry too much about anti-aliasing at 4K. But oh crap. Yeah, I would I would definitely play around with it. 6emper says, anyone getting worse performance now with DLSS off? The game is also a lot worse at saving graphics settings now. Every time I restart the game, the settings are a random mix of high and ultra instead of what I left it on. You know, I noticed when I adjusted the graphics settings, sometimes it would throw me off full screen and then I would go to Windows borderless. So yeah, I guess there's some bugs in there in terms of the graphics settings and whatnot. So sometimes you do have to go back and check if your settings have saved. But yeah, I understand like where you're coming from. I think that there could be a problem with the graphics settings. So I'll put the chat on the right hand. Sorry, I'm blocking the chat, but that's okay. I think you guys can see the chat anyway, and it's really just for me. I'm working off like two screens, and I'm gonna try and put the chat somewhere on screen next time for another live stream. But for now, this is all I can do. All right, Peter Pearson says, I'm getting 85 to 95 FPS at 4K Ultra quality DLSS with an overclock 3080, 11900K stock, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and 55 to 65 FPS before DLSS. That's a lot. That is a lot. So, that's pretty cool. Especially like ultra quality DLSS, quality DLSS. So I think that's really good gains there, and I think yeah, I would probably just turn it on anyways, unless you start to see the image quality being affected. Then I would probably just jump back to without DLSS. Nicolas Cage says, is it even worth to use the DLSS on 1080p instead of balance settings with DLSS off? Yeah, I think what I would do would be I would play at 1080p and try to adjust some of the other settings, see which image quality you like better, and then adjust it that way. Because I think your quality settings, I haven't played that much of Red Dead Redemption 2, but adjusting the quality settings to something like medium would get you probably more performance boost than say a DLSS to quality, for example. And you start to notice it on quality anyway. So you get 10% there, or you could just turn off your, I don't know, maybe reduce some like your shadows, for example. Leonardo says, is the bad anti-aliasing fixed at 1080p? Yeah, I was going to say, I was watching the 4K just then, and I noticed like on those power lines or the power poles that there was some aliasing that probably shouldn't have been there, especially if I've just set it to ultra preset. That shouldn't have been there. So maybe they hadn't fixed it. And Dandy Rick says no, which I think, you know, probably right. Like maybe it hasn't been fixed. So Dandy Rick, that's a shame. At least we have free performance. Yeah. So it's not, maybe it's not just 1080p, it's at the other resolutions as well. I says, Nick, the Greek name you couldn't pronounce. Thank you. I remember that for next time. Chris David, if I have a 1440p monitor, is it using DSR to render at 4K? and then use DLSS to render back down to 1440p. Okay. Uh, that's a really tricky question. You're asking me whether the 4K with quality DLSS is better than the 1440p Ultra. I would just stick to 1440p Ultra. I think the 4K Ultra might be better, but then you lose that frame rate anyways. Let me bring up the performance chart. Okay. So Chris David's question was, should I down... Oh, crap. Chris David's question was, should I play at 1440p Ultra, which is 70 FPS, or play at 4K DLSS quality? And I would say play at 1440p Ultra. I would say maybe the 4K Ultra picture here is a little bit better. A little bit. But then you're still going to get some issues sometimes, like maybe you're not happy with the way the grass looks or whatever. But the native image looks pretty good to me. And you're not going to have things like artifacting, pixelation, motion issues, noise, like all of that sort of thing there. Now, I'm not saying it's plagued with those issues. I'm just saying maybe sometimes it would affect the image quality, but you wouldn't get that at all at 1440p Ultra because you're not adding another process into the mix. So native is still the way to go, I think. Skeptic says performance gain is pretty lame. Yeah, if you're at 1080p, I guess so. But otherwise, you know, it depends where you're sitting. If you're like 55 FPS, you want 60, this could be a good way to get it with very little quality loss. BattleNetter says, honestly, not very impressive. The performance gains in town areas where it matters is less than 10% on a 3080. And even in quality mode, I notice a fair amount of shimmer. Not at all impressed. Yeah, so I guess they're the compromises you have to decide upon. I think, yeah, you may want to turn down the other graphics settings. Name is Daddy says, it's mid-2021 and DLSS still fails to impress with so many artifacts and noisy image. It only looks good on GeForce official page. Okay, so there are other games that do DLSS better, like Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition. Silky smooth, just runs perfect. I have no complaints about the DLSS image in Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition. So it does work. I think you also got to have some sort of like implementation from this where it's built up from the ground up. And I think they did that with Metro Exodus. And they bettered that in the Enhanced Edition. X Thunder X says, happy for you. In my case, no. SSD 512 gigabytes. He's got listed his specs there. I don't want to read it. But he's got an RTX 3060 laptop. And yes, laggy. Oh no, doesn't change nothing. DLSS on or off, the game doesn't matter. Image or words, bad quality, glitched. Yeah, it could very well be, because I think if you're like on 1080 or 1440p, maybe it's not going to affect it that much. So you're only seeing like 5-6 FPS increase, and that's only 10% at 60 FPS. So it doesn't feel like there's much performance gain. And everyone's talked up DLSS so much, and NVIDIA talks it up a lot. Like they'll proudly boast that it does 45% performance boost or 100% in other games, and then you end up getting 10% in this. So it doesn't feel like a whole lot. I will say that at least this game it's been retrofitted with DLSS. This was a console developed game, so I think they kind of, I won't say did the bare minimum on this, but did all they could, might be the better way to phrase it. They did what they could with the DLSS implementation there just to squeeze out some extra frames, add this technology into this game. And if they developed it for the ground up for Grand Theft Auto 5 or 6, sorry, then I think you'll get a bit better performance gains. Okay, so I've answered all the comments there. I might go back and just write a few comments, but I apologize if I don't comment on your post because I pretty much answered it here anyways. And I think, yeah, normally I would like to answer these posts, but I don't want to answer them twice. I will leave a few comments here and there. But we've got 4 viewers in there. So if you guys have any questions about any of this, make sure to go also to check out my DLSS testing video that I put up last night, about 7 or 8 hours ago. I put it up, and go and check that on my channel. And it tests 1080p, 1440p, and 4K at ultra settings for DLSS quality and DLSS performance, and also with DLSS off, and you'll get the summary of the testing in that video. Okay, so if you guys have no other questions, we're probably going to leave it there. I don't know how long I've gone for. Let me see. I've been live for 1 hour and 7 minutes. I think that's a good place to stop because I want to keep these live streams down, and also the chat. There's nothing in the chat anymore, so I've answered all of the questions there pretty much. So if there's no more chat, then I guess I will just call it a day. It's so much fun to be on live streams. I want you guys to chat in the chat a little bit more so that I can reply to something. And yeah, I hope you guys have a really good day. And I think I'm going to go now. So thanks very much. And I will see you guys again next time.